yeah.
Newsletter has been around for
long
time, decades, probably centuries,
Sure.
right? Nothing
Yeah.
new. Because our subscribers are growing, we did grow quite a fair bit. So recently about 35% open rate, right? Can go as high as was 50.
Wow. In this episode of Growth by Lit, I talked to Aaron, co-founder of Coffee Break, a daily newsletter that filters the news and selectively gives you the things that you should read and consume. Because let's face it, there's simply too much information out there in the market and you can't possibly consume them all. So with Coffee Break, what they do is they give you the only news that is important and those that you should actually consume.
The important information, we extract it out, we summarize it well, we structure it well enough that people, after a quick read, they understand, get a good idea what's happening. Right. And of course, we make it fun as well. Right? Sometimes we are snarky. There are particular terms and what that you do not know. So we add educational bit of it into our newsletter. Say, for example, most recent debacle about your stablecoin, right? So the UST Luna thing, right? We talk about what happened, and then a lot of people surprisingly still don't know what stablecoin. So we put, if you want to understand more about stablecoin, click here. So from that part of the analytics, you can see that a lot of things that short reference like that, people actually click to understand more. I think us humans have this own bias or own projection on others that what we know, other people should know.
Yeah.
That's the very bad assumption they will have.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying people are stupid, it's just that we assume too
The
much.
world is huge.
Yeah, the world is so huge, man. Sometimes I read my newsletter, I just find out things that I thought I know, right, turn out to be wrong.
Okay.
So number one is a news part, number two is a educational part. Of course, number three is the fun part of things.
Yeah. Now, there's many things I've learned from Aaron, but let me break it down into a few points of view. First point, business is all about solving problems. Too many people focus on another way around. What they do is they build a tech, they build the system, they build an app first before solving a problem. If you're building a business, you probably want to go out there and solve problems first and then build the tech for it. So when it comes to Coffee Break, right, what problem do you think it solves?
In the startup industry, a lot people like to say they are tech startups, right?
Yeah.
But I think for most cases, majority, if you're not deep science, deep hard tech, right, you're actually a tech-enabled startup.
True.
We are also a tech-enabled company. I don't use the word startup. We use platforms, other services like things like MailChimp like that. That's easy to get started with writing a newsletter. So we use Substack in our case. Substack was meant for content, for newsletter purposes. A lot of these services for our generation nowadays, that they lower the barriers to entry, the cost to entry to do things. You have an idea, you should never use that as a reason expensive to start. Right? A lot of services out there, right? You can bundle up together, combine here and there, to have a rough product to gauge the demand in the market.
Off-the-shelf products.
So when I thought doing the Coffee Break, I was not sure should I do or should I not do. Then I came across Morning Brew. I was like, interesting, right? Morning Brew and the hustle.
Yeah.
Newsletter has been around for
long
time, decades, probably centuries, right? Nothing new. But what they did was you mentioned earlier, the value proposition they brought to solve problems for people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So in the case of Morning Brew, Morning Brew is a coffee break. Yes,
I see.
we copied a lot of Morning Brew, rather inspired. What's the difference is that the voice, the way they write, caters to the audience. So that's a value proposition we bring. So in our newsletter, yes, we got memes and all, but we also have a decent group of subscribers who I would say they're in the 40s. I remember my father was reading my newsletter. Probably, I think he's always support me and right?
Yeah.
But he sometimes discuss topics like that he didn't come across with me. So I think that's value added.
That's value added for him. Number two, the age of information is now over. If you're creating content, you'll be competing with tons and tons of people. Right now, those who can frame information is the one who wins.
There are things to learn for the average people in business articles and all. So for us in the industry, you have no choice to read the age. They're really good what they do. They're probably the only source that's comprehensive in the financial market in Malaysia. But if you want the average person, your Gen Y, your Gen Z to read the age, is a bit hard. So we take information from the age, we add our own spin.
Right.
Make it accessible for people to read. If they're interested, and click for them and learn more.
Right. Before the whole internet craze, right, we go to people like lawyers, doctors for information. But right now we have too much information. In fact, people go to doctors with something printed out and say, hey, doctor, you're wrong.
Right, exactly, right? Actually, instead of consulting a doctor, you debate with the doctor.
Yeah. So last time the value-added proposition was if you have information. But right now, I think the value-added proposition is if you can frame information in a way or focus on information that is accurate.
All right, that's a good point. That's a very interesting way you frame it. That information is power, right?
Yeah.
Who has information takes the decision. But now it's who has the right information.
Yeah, the correct when you frame it. I think that's what you actually solve with coffee break.
That's what I like to think. So
Number 3, if you are creating content, you might find difficulties in getting that consistency. So I asked Aaron about how he overcomes this, and the answer is delegating and finding that inflection point. So speaking about time, right, you write every day from Monday to Friday. In content marketing, it always comes down to consistency. People do something like 1-2 weeks and then they stop, do 1-2 months and stop.
Correct,
so how do you find that consistency? And how do you do it every single day? You have like a schedule or
things won't be fruitful in the first 1-2 years, 3 years. Right, like this Soraya, the personal finance.
She's very consistent.
She's a very kind supporter of the coffee break. I think I came across a tweet of her. She's been writing for years. And early years, right? Hardly people read her stuff. And then it reached an inflection point, and boom, she's well known.
So you're always looking for that inflection point.
You have to last until that, right? But being consistent, right? To last until that inflection point, whether it comes or not, you'll never know. So in our case, we started in November 2020. Market is already open, but lockdown was still there, right?
Yeah.
So at night, pretty much you stay at home. So I think we're forced to be consistent in that form.
But were there any days like you feel like, I don't feel like writing?
Just continue writing. But now that things are open, you have more life. It does interfere a bit with the newsletter. It's just about consistency. We just have to keep doing. Find ways to extend our endurance. Right. So what I mean by extend our endurance, right? Last time it was written by the co-founders, me and my partners.
Okay.
Right. So of course we have live at night as well. So how we extend our endurance? Get part-time writers. It's one way of doing it, right? We get people who support us in writing to reduce our burden a bit. But of course, we need to ensure the quality is there.
The voice of the writing.
So I think that's one way. We're forced to be consistent because of circumstance. Right? Sometimes you don't see results. You get tired, right?
Yeah, you get demotivated.
Yeah, I get demotivated. So it's important to celebrate and achieve small wins. Sometimes we have no subscribers a day, new subscribers. We dropped the ball second half of last year. That means we only write. We did nothing in terms of marketing and distribution. We just write any. That means our base hardly grew for that 6 to 8 months. We only started putting in effort late January this year, where we
to grow the subscribers.
Grow the subscriber base.
Next, from what I've learned is that newsletters are still quite relevant, but you have to look at few metrics. So what are the open rates, subscriber growth rates that you should look at and more? Check it out. So is that like your success metric? Or what is a metric you track, like the success metric that tells you you're going forward?
I think a prime metric is always engagement plus subscriber growth, right? But engagement is a function of my complete product. It's healthy. There's always a natural limit, right? How much? I can't expect like the 100% open rate of the newsletter, right? So our newsletter is it's quite healthy. Our open rate's about, because our subscribers are growing, we did grow quite a fair bit. So recently about 35% open rate, right? It can go as high as was 50.
Wow.
Okay. But that was only one time okay? But otherwise, if you're talking about towards the middle of the curve, the normal distribution curve, it'll be 40% plus or so, but 35 to 40% of our average. So engagement is there. We need to see growth in subscribers, otherwise we feel demotivated.
Yeah.
We feel demotivated, so we need to set a goal, one way or another, to find a way to grow our audience, right? 1 or 2 a day, doesn't matter. So long as consistency, right? Grows, and then you don't know when the flywheel will start kicking in. You never know where you will hit your inflection point. Things like that. So I think importance about being consistency is, I think, as we did talk about it before our recording, is increase the surface of the surface of probability of success. Right? The more things you do, you expose yourself to to areas like serendipity, chance meeting, I you never know. Some people tweet about you suddenly, boom, right?
You never know.
But these are what we call silver bullet. Okay?
Right,
You cannot
right.
expect a single effort to be a game changer for us.
True,
What we're
true.
trying to do is just increase the surface for this single.
To get lucky.
Yeah, to get lucky, right? Once, twice, or
Right,
consistency,
right.
things like that.
So in terms of sending emails, right? Is there like a good day, good time,
Uh,
morning, afternoon?
So in this email thing, right? I did look into it as well. I think it's very contextual lah, on when to send and all, right? Analysis. The difference between what I say is not so relevant in our case is because this is not so much. What we do is not so much on marketing. Right? These kind of emails are what we call transactional emails.
Yeah,
The one you're
yeah,
referring
yeah.
to, right? You want a weekly newsletter or emails to engage your users,
Right,
things
right.
like that. So those are more transactional. To your point, there are times and all
To send.
right?
Yeah.
To be honest with you, I didn't look so deep into this because for us, we went in knowing that I just make it the first thing for people to read lah in the morning. Indeed, it happened lah,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So we got really lucky in this sense, right? People
Right.
kick off their day with our newsletter.
What about the title?
Ah,
Long, short?
okay. In our case,
Teasing
the nature
people with the
of this,
title.
we always use long title, right? I realized long title allows for more context in it. To
Okay,
engage people further.
okay.
Some newsletters are like 5 or 6 words, like Morning Brew. They're really short. I don't see a lot of value in that lah.
I see.
I for us we do long titles, and like it or not, there are elements of clickbaitiness in it. Okay.
That curiosity, you want to see what's inside
Yeah, correct. But I won't do it so
drastically.
so drastic lah, where the title and the content is just off. We try not to do that lah.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We try to pick topics that are hot, like your corruption cases, things like that, right? We think that resonates with our majority of users. Then we try to put it in the title. So that helps with the open rate. In the absence of a sexy hot open rate, in the absence of a sexy hot
Title.
eye-catchy title, our open rate is still healthy. It's the base, it's at least 35-36%.
I think maybe because your base of users have understood or understand the kind of content you create, and they're not falling for all these little tactics anymore.
probably.
Yeah.
So there's a 35% of that appreciates what we do. Make it a habit for them. It becomes a habit for them to open up this letter. And then I mentioned earlier something shoot up to 40 or 50%, right? Probably these are casual readers. People will just see our headlines only, they don't open, right? And then sometimes you see catchy headlines, they open and go inside, see. Right? So probably I have that additional 10% of these subscribers in my pocket that I haven't converted to avid readers lah.
Right.
But at least they haven't unsubscribed lah, right?
Yeah,
They're still on my mailing list. That's the important part lah. So I appreciate that.
Lastly, this is essential for any businesses out there. Start building an audience as soon as possible. I mean, a lot of people jump into like paid ads, but I think it comes down to the fundamental of finding like who's your audience, where they are hanging out at, and how do you reach them, right? So what you've done actually is exactly
correct.
that.
So if people feel the value prop,
Yeah.
so some of my friends that share with me like, hey, shit, this is quite new, man. It's quite different what you're doing, huh? So once people feel it, hey, it's quite different, huh? So then they just send to people and all. And then do shameless plugs lah. That WhatsApp group and just dump it in there. Then you go. But whatever it is at the beginning, if you're talking about consumer
Right.
products, shamelessness lah.
Have you tried any paid ads before?
We did try. Some works, some didn't work. So,
What was the best one? Or anything you can learn from there?
okay, so if you're talking about educational stuff or more intellectual thing that requires brain power to process the information, not consume the information. What I'm doing consume information probably is mostly usually entertainment, songs and videos. Right? For ours, you need to absorb it. The best channel for such content is Twitter.
Twitter?
Yes.
Okay.
Twitter got us the majority of exposure and attention. I think Suraya found us through Twitter.
Twitter.
And all these names and all, they found us through Twitter. It had primary or best distributed channel. We also take contents from there and also put into Twitter because yes, you have newsletter, your newsletter subscribers. So why why not reduce your effort, right? So we take contents from our newsletter, we put in the threaded tweets. So people who don't read, who are not subscribers,
Okay.
also can read our tweet, and then. And
So how did they find you on Twitter? Do they follow a hashtag or?
No, you have to ensure when you ensure your content is great, attractive, clickbaity enough. People retweet online, that's where you get that attention.
Oh, okay,
So it's
okay,
not like your
okay.
share on Facebook, but the engagement for this it's a lot higher on Twitter. People sharing.
Okay.
Yeah, our followers can grow on Twitter, 6,000 followers now, not a lot, but it's still growing, right? Eventually, I've built 100,000 follower base. I can use that as a funnel to grow my newsletter one way or another. That's how we see it.
So Twitter work for you. Do you think other businesses in Malaysia so also rely a bit on Twitter? Because not many companies do, you know.
Yeah, so Twitter is, I think, it's a pot of gold for marketers, for brand marketers. When everyone talk Facebook and all, right? Yeah, because I understand Facebook built a great ad system.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
So $8 but Twitter, we know their ad system is just rubbish.
Yeah.
Right. But Twitter has a lot of Malaysian users there, especially the Malay communities.
Malay community.
Malay community is huge there, right? Chinese, there are a lot of Chinese as well, but they're not as engaging as your Malay followers lah.
Right.
And engagement is a lot better on Twitter. It's more interesting, and I still think Twitter is still a blue ocean for a lot of brands.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Now, who else you want to see me interview and learn from? Let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll see you in the next episode of Growth by Lin.